Hello and welcome once again to Sustainable Sustainability, a series of podcasts brought to you by the Stewardship Asia Centre here in Singapore. My name is Taimur Nabili and I'm co-hosting this podcast with Rajeev Peshawaria, the CEO of the Stewardship Asia Centre. Rajeev, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, as always, Taimur. And today, the steward leader that we're going to be talking to is Bhargav Sri Prakash, and he is joining us from India. Bhargav, welcome to the show.
Real honor to be here, Rajiv. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Bhargav, we wanted to talk to you because of the work that you're doing around digital vaccines. Tell us a little bit more what these digital vaccines are, how does it work, and what are you trying to do?
The idea or the notion of a digital vaccine really is something that we've been kind of developing and breathing life into what that means for the last 12 years. And this work is really centered at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and which is the anchor for this global effort in an ecosystem of multiple universities shaping this idea of digital vaccines. The idea is really to kind of think of the future of vaccines, and you know, for the last 12, 13 years we'd been kind of almost dreaming about all these frontier technologies, very powerful technologies that were on the horizon, deep learning, neural networks, reinforcement learning, and really thinking of it in the context of how can we harness this really powerful technology for preventing disease. And there was also another kind of trend in technology, which was the use of virtual reality technology. And at the confluence of virtual reality and AI, we were able to think of, the future of vaccines. So how can we stimulate the body's immune system? How can we kind of harness the body's self-healing mechanisms by creating a bridge through AI into the physiology of the human body, and do so in a safe, ethical, and evidence-based way to create vaccines that have no needles, that therefore don't need any biologics or pharmaceuticals. It was really non-invasively triggering the body's own natural mechanisms of preventing disease. So that was kind of the broad concept of digital vaccines, and how this really comes together as these frontiers technologies can create a new way of preventing disease.
So that's the broad concept. What was the application? How do you stimulate the body's own systems without inserting into it a stimulant to make it active?
So what we have discovered really is that we were able to create this bridge using breakthroughs in neuroscience. And we've been able to almost, based on several fMRI or functional magnetic resonance imaging studies. These are very high resolution scans of neural activity, especially in children, to be able to map the human brain, and at a resolution of almost millimeters, we're able to kind of create a map that can be an input into a neural network about the role that different parts of the brain play, and the neural responsiveness in those regions we know have a high degree of potency in predicting certain outcomes of interest, whether it is it's almost like a muscle, like the wiring in the brain is almost like a muscle. It can be trained and retrained, and we're able to kind of facilitate that using just virtual reality technology and really signaling the brain through just our sensory pathways. So virtual reality technology generated by this neural network is able to increase blood flow to specific parts of the brain in specific patterns, and increase neural responsiveness and neural activity in those regions of the brain. So that's how we're able to enter the body non-invasively. And then we've uncovered these mechanistic pathways between the brain and the gut, as well as then to the immune system, that gives us a very powerful axis to be able to influence the health and the wellness of the human body.
So, in other words, so rather in layman's terms, you have a kid playing a game on an iPhone or on a virtual reality headset that will prevent that child from getting obese or prevent diabetes. Is that what we're talking about here, in simple terms?
Yeah, I think it is. There's so many steps in between, but I guess the outcome is exactly that. Is that we have this technology that is delivered on an Android device or an iOS device, and it's really programmed and designed to, in a very safe way, trigger neural activity in a child. And downstream of this neural activity, we're able to reduce the risk and prevent the incidence of disease.
How is it different from me watching a film or having, or even if it is a VR experience that is very informative that I should not eat sugar or I should not eat fat, etc. Awareness about lifestyle. I'm watching a film, I'm playing a game. How is this a vaccine? How is it different from watching an informational video?
It's a great question. And, when we were envisioning the future of vaccines, honestly, uh, nobody was the world wasn't quite as interested about vaccines as we are now. But one of the things that in modern evidence-based medicine, one of the most important things is not only to have evidence of outcomes, health outcomes of interest through double-blinded, randomized controlled trials, reproducible. You also have to establish safety, but the idea of efficacy and effectiveness. And the other really important thing about a vaccine is that the mechanism of being able to induce these physiological changes is well understood. We're actually using what's called telemetry signal. So what the neural network uses to have a kind of a feedback system established, and this is all happening in real time. So the neural network that we have trained dynamically puts these experiences together, and every action at the rate of a millisecond by the child is sent back to the neural network that synthesizes all this information and determines what to show next. So no one child gets the same pathway. It's really kind of configuring what is called neuro-cognitive training mechanisms. So these are these kind of experiences and algorithms that we know signal a specific region in the brain. And then there is also mechanisms around engagement and gamification and even just the content. So how do you configure these things in real time and with the purpose of achieving this neural response?
Can I just try and summarize what you're saying about the process here? And if I'm getting
Sure.
it completely wrong, tell me.
Sure.
But you're saying that visual stimulation gets parts of the brain active, and your AI, by assessing the behavior of the watcher, can predict which parts of the brain are being activated, and with the next image, guide the next neural activity to a determined pattern, which will then, again, and the next image and the image after that. This is all a real-time feedback mechanism between the behavior of the viewer and the AI image generator, which will generate images appropriate to that circumstance that will stimulate those areas that you know will be beneficial in this context.
Oh, that's absolutely really well said. I think what we're also able to do, there's another dimension to this, is this isn't just about behavior in a digital environment alone. The one thing that digital vaccines are able to do, and we have evidence to support that we can do what is called digital neuro behavioral transference, and so we're able to induce these real world behaviors well after the fact.
Let's step away for a moment from the medical aspect of this and talk a little bit about the social and the business elements involved, because we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about the ability for these systems to be propagated to a scale that actually makes an impact. And obviously, if we can stop people from getting diabetes through modifying their own behavior, then this needs to be something that's global. How do you roll out this kind of application? Do you make this a business? Is this a profit-making process? Is this a government-led process? How do you instill this in the societal frame?
That's a fantastic question. We've kind of focused on the science and the research for over a decade now, and only I think while we had kind of motivation and again kind of a long-term vision around health and empowering humans through these technologies, only now does the evidence speak for itself. So when it is held up to independent peer review or scrutiny, the evidence kind of speaks for itself. Now, what I think, as kind of an intrinsic motivation, I think we're all wired to think of living with the best possible health. But unfortunately, there are so many things pulling us in different directions that often we don't prioritize long-term health as much as we kind of prefer kind of an instant gratification to indulge in something that may compromise long-term health. So if an individual perspective, especially for parents, they're all very concerned about the health of children. Almost universally. The other real constituents that really care about the health of their society is government. And so governments that are a little more ahead of the curve in terms of thinking about, increasing their GDP, keeping their medical spend lower, not having to build more hospitals to feed this sick profit system. Can we kind of get governments to kind of turn this into state-backed or state-sponsored or state-mandated kind of programs as part of the curriculum for children, so that in an age or a grade appropriate way, this gets embedded. Just like we've convinced ourselves that it's worth investing 14 years worth of education into every individual because there are better outcomes. But somehow we're not investing anything in health, not in the same magnitude anyway. So now there's an incredible opportunity to go through schools, make this kind of a required kind of a subject or a core curricular activity, age appropriate, grade appropriate, and for just they spend 20 to 30 minutes a week, kind of in this with this technology. For the kids, it's engaging. It's gamified, kind of almost entertainment. Although the implicit benefits are already part of the value proposition, and the governments will eventually pay for this because they can reduce the risk of disease. That's how we envision.
So, are there any governments or schools that have already signed up?
Yeah, so in small numbers, we're working with some states. We deployed with the state government in India, in Tamil Nadu, which is where we ran the randomized controlled kind of experiment longitudinally for infectious disease prevention. We're kind of deploying this and working with the government of Qatar, the Ministry of Health there, Carnegie Mellon. We have a campus in Qatar. We're also in Singapore, and we had some very exciting conversations with the Ministry of Health and the Health Promotion Board. So I think countries are truly motivated, and certain responsible governments really want to do the right thing to harness the maximum potential out of their citizens, and those would be the right players for us to be able to not only deploy this at population scale, but also create case studies for the entire world to then try and emulate.
And then your patent is in the US at this point, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we were issued a patent by the US Patent Trademark Office. We found out that it was the first patent for a digital vaccine in the whole world. And since then, we have pending patents in other regions of the world, in Europe, in India, in Australia, in Canada, multiple regions in the world. There's multiple countries that we think are of interest to us in the long term.
And you said, or rather, going back to Temur's question, you see this as a profitable venture for you in trying to, yes, of course, the bigger purpose is to prevent disease, but you see this as a profitable venture for you guys going forward?
Absolutely, we hope so. We've kind of structured ourselves as a for-profit entity, although we haven't quite got to that point where, profit is on the horizon. I come to this, Rajiv, after kind of a career as a tech founder. I've kind of built and sold to companies in technology, in deep technology in the US, and I was also in finance. But this for me really was kind of having a long-term vision, mostly because of a personal kind of calling to when I had my first daughter, and she had food allergies, severe food allergies when she was a small baby, and on hindsight we realized it was a lot triggered by what was in the food system, but the whole pathway that we went on was what opened my eyes up to how kind of systematically and systemically we have it wrong, in terms of more drugs, more treatments, and not really getting to the root cause of this. But that said, now we've been on this long journey of creating a foundation of science. We have the R&D, the scientific ecosystem, Carnegie Mellon University, and all our ecosystem partners. But now we're getting into the phase where governments are buying the technology to deploy this at national scale. And so eventually we'll be able to be able to create a sustainable kind of an enterprise, because as much as we're doing this out of motivation for passion, and we want to see the world in a different way, and the future generations experiencing the world differently, and moving the trajectory in global health towards health. We want to make sure that we can sustain and do justice to the kind of problems we're trying to solve. So we hope we'll be a profitable company, and I think we're much closer to it than we've ever been before.
Bhargav, the Stewardship Asia Centre promotes stewardship, and that means a certain set of values and behaviors and activities that align with a mindset that is for the benefit of humanity and the society in general. We've already talked about how there is a degree of vaccine skepticism, particularly in the United States. I can't help but think that the conspiracy theorists are going to look at this and say, this kind of technology in the hands of government is something that will worry them. This kind of behavioral ability to manage behavior from a young age is going to worry the anti-government conspiracists. What do you have in place? What protocols and procedures do you have in place that would make sure that stewardship values are what drives your activities rather than anything else?
Absolutely. One of the things that we have done was a commitment to science, and a real kind of, I think, pioneering view on evidence and the scientific process, whether it's the ethical considerations. These are very rigorously reviewed even before we can undertake a trial involving a human subject, as you probably well know, but more so for a child because they're considered a vulnerable population. There would have been many, many shortcuts for us to get to the market if that's how we were inclined. But we've kind of not even tried to go to the market until we have a really strong body of evidence that allows people that want to solve this problem to pull for a solution that may solve this problem. But as far as the stewardship and the values, I mean, that's what we live by, we breathe by. We haven't taken any external funding from anybody, so we've self-funded this to ensure that we can, stay focused on having a long-term view and doing what feels right. So we're not going to be taking shortcuts because investors or other people want us to go in a different way. But with science, we also constantly measure these outcomes, look for adverse events, look for unintended consequences, and we publish these in the top, in the top journals, so that it's independently scrutinized and reviewed. But the idea is that we want to create a movement for the world, not to try and build a company and sell it in a matter of few years. Hopefully, we create a legacy that outlives any of us. So that's how we hope we're going to be able to, pass this along for, the next several centuries.
Fantastic. Fast forward for me 5 years, and you have been wildly successful, beyond your dreams in terms of what you're trying to do with this. What does that state look like 5 years from now?
I think if we were, getting to a point where we see, uh, technology be used in this way, we were able to see absolute safety around it, um, and and continue to course correct so that we're making sure that the benefits outweigh any harm, um, and by significant margin. Uh, I think we would it would be kind of a dream to see entire countries taking this on as kind of their top agenda. One of the things that I was very dismayed about, having come through, having had a professional entrepreneurial career, and seeing how systemically things are broken, is that we have designed our world to operate in these silos. Uh, the world of health or medicine that has nothing to do with education, has nothing to do with environmentalists or environmental engineering, or people that think about carbon footprint. And so all these social development goals or the sustainable development goals were largely in silos. And even for us, we're seeing, by really kind of cutting across these different silos, we're finding solutions, and to things that can have such wide ramifications and far-flung kind of consequences, positive consequences. But if we can, in a quantifiable way, be able to say that even if we infinitesimally change the trajectory of global health, reduce the amount of disease, reduce the suffering associated with it, we can quantify how much we've kind of lowered our carbon footprint or our environmental footprint. Those would be like the most, I guess, inspiring and kind of aspirational kind of goals for us, is that we create, that we can help humanity move in that direction, and for the forces that dominate direction in the world, if they make prevention a priority, so that we get out of this mindset of more sickness equal to more profit is equal to more sickness. I think then I would hopefully end my journey and my kind of time with this on a note of saying, okay, we tried and we really made some impact.
Very good. Well, 14 years you've been at it already, and that's credible in terms of staying true to what you're trying to do here. Fantastic. Wish you a lot of good luck and a lot of success ahead. And hopefully you'll come back to this show a couple of years from now and tell us how many more governments have signed up, how many schools have signed up. So thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thanks, Bhargav.
It's been a real pleasure and such an honor. Thank you so much, Rajiv, and it's I can't wait to come back to your show and hopefully give you an update about the progress we've made, the positive steps that we've been able to accomplish. So thank you again for having me. It's been a real honor.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Great.